Hi there, folks. I'm Emily.
And I'm Elk.
And so it turns out that styrofoam is not great for soundproofing, but it is really great for building forts to play in. So you're welcome for that little review.
Except we would advise against using glue guns because sometimes the heat of the glue melts through the styrofoam. So you just have to be careful if you're using a glue gun to put pieces together for your fort.
Yes, I definitely recommend glue sticks or regular glue bottles over a glue gun.
Yeah, or like a staple gun if you've got to use a gun to piece things together in defiance of what guns actually do.
Well, they shoot things out, so they're sort of all in the realm of... This is a very violent episode.
And it's not even about something that's violent. It's about something that's actually not as violent. Oh, well, actually a guy falls down a manhole cover and dies.
True. So there's that. But we're about to talk about a Disney Pixar movie. So, though there can be, I mean, Bambi is shot, or Bambi's mom is shot.
That's
so true. Disney doesn't exactly shy away from violence when it's necessary. However, in their most recent offering, Soul, there wasn't really any violence.
Except for the part where he died.
Right. But it isn't really it's violence on our scale because we try to make sure that things are not just clean, but also sort of age appropriate. So in that sense, but it's not violent like mano a mano, which,
Right.
Anyway, so Soul by Disney Pixar is a movie which they released directly to Disney Plus. I assume it was probably meant to be in theaters, but, people don't go to movie theaters anymore. So direct to home video, which just another sidetrack. Remember when direct to home video was a really bad thing? Like all the bad movies were direct to home video.
Yeah, that was like, we couldn't get it into a theater. So VOD, right? That's what VOD was. Yeah.
Yeah. But now that's the thing to do.
Yeah.
That's how things are released. And not just because of COVID, I mean, probably mostly because of COVID, but also because people are streaming stuff so much online. So it's just interesting how things change.
Unless you're the last James Bond film, because that they keep pushing off. So we'll see, because they want a theater release for that one. We'll see what happens. We're not going to make any predictions, but whatever is predicted, you heard it here first. Whatever comes out, you heard it here first. Whichever way it was.
So Soul is animated, and it is about Joe, who's an aspiring musician, and he finally lands the gig of a lifetime, and then his life is cut very, very short by falling in previously mentioned manhole. So he ends up in pre-heaven, purgatory, and then he ends up in pre-birth area. And he helps this unborn soul, or with the help of an unborn soul, he tries to find his way back to Earth and to being alive. And in the process, the unborn soul also learns about what it is to be alive. So for the ratings, we gave it 1 on violence.
Well, because he dies.
A 1 on language. Yeah. That's true. And a 1 on romance. But all of these ratings, it's a Disney Pixar movie meant for families. So take our ratings, but also just have in mind whatever Disney Pixar movie is to you. And it's pretty standard. It's not scary, or it's probably less scary than some, like Hunchback of Notre Dame or Lion King have some really scary moments.
Or
I don't think this has any of those.
Yeah, Toy Story 3 where they go into that trash compactor.
Yes. Yeah, so this doesn't really have anything that scary.
Or evil. Yeah.
That's true. The one bad guy is not nearly as scary as Maleficent or Jafar or many Disney villains. And the romance also there's a kiss, but it's not a love story.
It's not a romantic kiss, yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty tame. I don't think that they're going to have to put don't let kids under 7 watch this Disney Pixar movie for inappropriate depictions of any groups of people. Though, I'd say it's a little stereotypy, but whatever. It's a good movie.
Well, because they still have Joe he's black and he loves jazz and he lives somewhere in New York, it seems, somewhere in
Yeah, it's definitely New York.
Like a Harlem area. Like I don't think they specify, but it seems like a neighborhood that he lives in, like a very neighborhoody. Not just like, oh, I'm a big city.
Like
yeah,
right.
Or maybe it is. I don't know.
No, like as suburban as New York, like still being in New York City, but like the suburban part, not downtown Manhattan.
Right. Yeah, I'm not really sure where you're supposed to be. It just feels like whatever neighborhood, like people in the hood somewhere, but not a projects feel to it, like just like a regular vibe. So there is that, and so here's what's interesting. You have an entire film about a soul and about souls in general, you know, kind of like what gives life meaning and stuff like that, but there's no mention of divinity. So I don't know how that works, because I know that, you know, people these days that can't talk about God anymore, and that religion's been so vilified that no one's allowed to practice it anymore for whatever silly reason. But it's like, if you believe that the soul is something that's beyond the body, so where does it come from? And so they make this like, oh no, there's this like before place, and like there's the counselor people who are like, they kind of look like, they look like a Picasso. Because we are just like the image of all the possibilities combined, which I don't know what kind of BS answer that is. But it's like, who made you people? Like, who are you people? How did you get in charge of your job? Like, how can you trick the guy who's the soul counter? How can these things happen? Even when they go to heaven, just going into a bright light and then like zip away. Like they don't really go into that. So it's an interesting thing that they're trying to like tell you that there's such a thing as soul that gives life like meaning. But if you believe in the spiritual without there being a spiritual being, how does that work?
It's interesting. I wasn't even going to necessarily bring this up, but it was a thought that came to me. So there are so this like pre-place before the souls go into humans, and they're very clearly supposed to be babies because like they're cute and adorable, and they have like little baby sounds that they make. Yeah. So if all these souls are going to be humans, I don't think this movie was meant to be a comment on abortion, but I think in a way it does comment on what a baby is and whether or not abortion is okay, even if the movie doesn't mean to, because it's saying these souls, the only place these souls are going is into humans. We know they're going into humans, and the only place that humans come from are wombs of women. So, I mean, it's a leap, and the average person watching the movie is not going to make that leap. And like I said, it just came to me this morning. It didn't come to me as I was watching it. But if these souls exist pre-birth, then, like, don't the baby, I don't know,
well, they also don't specify when the baby goes down also. But, like, apparently they already, like, the whole personality is packed into the soul, so the soul's not, that means that the soul is coming as a being and as a personality already into a body, right? The person is the soul, is kind of what they're saying. So they never show you exactly when the soul gets in there, but it also doesn't make sense, like, okay, it's part of, it needs to happen for the story, but how come when they fall down, she gets put into his body, soul number 22 gets put into his body, he gets into the body of a cat, like, so the cat didn't have a soul until he fell into it, or did he, like, knock out a soul when he got in there? So you can't think about it too much, but that's what we do. Right. Because no one else is thinking about these things. So we gotta be here to make sure you overthink everything. And also because everything that you're gonna read and watch, there is messaging in all of it. So we have to question. Just because they try to trick you with all the cuteness doesn't mean you shouldn't ask the question. Well, because here's why also it's interesting, because he gets to watch, Joe, because he's in the body of the cat now, he gets to watch 22 experience the world through his body. So it's like, so there's like, oh, you don't like jazz because I like jazz or whatever. But in a way, it re-inspires him, like the way he like sees, like when she tastes pizza for the first time, and he sees the way that enjoyment that she has of it. It like reminds him of all the little things in life also. And it's interesting that they do focus on the little things. There's no big moment. There's no big speech. There's no big whatever. It's the eating pizza. Or like they go and like when they, communicate with the mom. He has the mom with the mom, like the woman who works in the mom's, she's a seamstress, right? So the woman who works in the shop. And it's just like showing you like, like when he goes to the barber. He's like, I usually just talk jazz to him. So just talk jazz to him. And then because 22's in the body, 22's like, did you always want to be a barber? Whatever. And then he starts like, no, I actually want to be, an astronaut, he says, or something.
something. Yeah, he learns all about him. They connect.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, I never thought, well, you never asked. And he's like, oh, but you're not happy in your life. He said, I didn't say I'm not happy in my life. Just because I'm not the astronaut. Like, I love being a barber. And it's so simple. And it's so nice. It's so affirming. And it's so life affirming.
Yes.
So that's also
I really,
good. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was, I mean, whether or not, okay, they didn't bring up any sort of divinity or anything, but ultimately I think the message of the movie, I think we agree, was very positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
For people of any age, I think for older adults, people who might be watching with their kids or not with their kids, you don't have to have kids to watch a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Who might be feeling like their life is purposeless because maybe they have been stuck in a career that they don't really love for 20 or 40 years. And young people who are not like people in their 20s, their late teens, out of college, who are trying to figure out what to do with their life. And things are so focused on career and being reminded that life is not about career. A career is an aspect of who you are, but it is not everything that you do, and you can be happy. Like, life itself is enough. And yes, what you do with life, but what you do with life doesn't have to be career.
Right. That's all right. So that's like, he also has that moment where 22's in the bottom, but like he's just sitting in the sunshine, watching the sun through the leaves. So that's all they did. They definitely did a good job on that. It's when you do start thinking about it a little bit more, you realize that certain things are kind of glossed over or not mentioned or not explained. But as a general thing, and this is also, so you could say, oh, they decided to use, black man or soul because they're just trying to show all different types of people. It's definitely better than what they try to do with the princesses. And they did like the Princess and the Frog film. That was a creepy voodoo film. There was like, they had to dig like some excuse of Black Princess up from somewhere, which I don't know, why can't you just find like from an African tribe or something if you specifically want to have a Black Princess, or just make up a story? Why did you have to do Princess and the Frog? I did not think was a good, like, look, we're going to have a Black Princess too. Like, stop it. Find someone like to really celebrate, not some made up frog.
Right. Like they did with Mulan, right? Like Mulan is a real Chinese story.
Yeah. And it's a great story. Sure, yeah. So that's, for this one, it was very nice that it all, like, it was a very nice story. It didn't feel like, oh, what this creepiness, whatever. Because it's just, Joe's just like regular guy, and look at how he's just celebrating the little things. Right? And that is, I'm not watching it for or not for depiction, which, sorry everyone, like, I don't care. But the fact that they did such a positive, they definitely did a good job on this one, this installment.
Yes.
As far as that goes, to just, like, so here's something else that's interesting, because he's a teacher, and you see him, like, he's kind of jaded by his teaching kids who don't know how to play music, except there's the one kid who, like, does feel jazz, as she does feel music. And you kind of see, they come back to that, and she kind of like, oh, I'm gonna quit the band, but like, oh, look, I wrote this. And it's like, no, you gotta keep with the music kind of thing. And it seems like, oh, I gave up everything in my life just for music, right? So he finally gets his gig, and that's everything that I've wanted, whatever. But then the end of it seems to be like, okay, what are you gonna do with your life now that he gets, like, restored to life? He's like, I don't know, but I'm gonna live it. Like, so one second, inspiring a student wasn't living life, or like playing jazz, that's your whole life, was not living life. So it's almost like contradicts itself. I'm not really sure where they're going at that point, because isn't that what we tell people? Like, if this is your dream, you gotta follow your dream. Like, if music is your dream, follow your dream. So he was kind of doing that. Unless they're trying to say, like, oh, he was so focused on his dream, he wasn't also living. But if music is so, music takes you into the zone, so.
I think that was the point, like, even, okay, so just for clarification, 22 is the name of the soul that he hangs out with, and the reason its name is 22 is because theoretically it's the 22nd soul ever created, but 22 has never made it to Earth because 22 hasn't found her purpose for living. And I think in the pre-birth place, all of the different souls, like, they find their purpose, and it's like cooking or music or teaching or whatever the thing is. But then at the end of the movie, the 22 finally finds her purpose, and she realizes, or the helper people, what were they called? The ones,
the counselors or something.
The counselors. They explain that, what you love to do is not your purpose.
Right.
It's realizing that life itself is worth living is what gives you the ability to be prepared for Earth. And then you will also you'll also have a passion that might give you like an extra zest, but it's the love for life itself. So I don't think that it was contradictory that he said he's going to start living, because he was so focused on his career that he'd never talked to this barber. He didn't have a great relationship with his mom.
Right.
He was so jaded about his teaching. But if he focused just on life and the good things, then he would see the good things there. And so I think that's
right. But it doesn't. We don't know if he's going to keep up with the gig he finally got, or is he going to still be a teacher? That to me was not clear. Mm-hmm. So maybe it is clear to other viewers, but it was not clear to me. It seemed like he was going to go find something else to do almost, which was not the point. Because also when he says to her, like after they have their first gig and it's like this fantastic experience, and it's like, okay, what do we do? And the lead, I guess she's a saxophone player, right? But she's like the head of the band. She's like, what do you mean we come back and we do it again tomorrow? And he's kind of like, it's almost like he pauses at that, like that's it, like we just keep coming back and doing it. But yeah, isn't that the whole point? Isn't that why you gave up everything for music, because you get to keep coming back and playing, and whatever people are going to feel from your playing, or that's why I also like they kind of get meddled there. Like the souls are there, they get personalities, but who created the souls? Who put the souls there? Right. Where did the souls come from?
I liked that moment when he said, well, what's next? And she said, we do this again. Because I thought that was a very good lesson to people who do pursue, whatever career you end up pursuing. Even if it's something you love, it's still a career. Right. And not every day is going to be magical. Every day you're going to have to come back and do the same thing. Some days are going to be great. Some days are not. So I thought that was maybe a good message, that don't look for your meaning in your career.
Oh, there we
go.
Because
you might find it. Some people do. But if you're not finding it there, you're not a problem as a person. You're not doing something wrong. That's just not where your purpose is. Find it somewhere else. Find it in life. Find it in...
It's beyond your
talking to people. Right. It's beyond... Yeah, exactly. Which was just interesting because, again, we've talked about so many stories about depressed teens. So clearly there's something in the culture today where teenagers are depressed. And I know being a teenager is hard, but it seems particularly a recent thing that teenagers are super depressed. And I feel like this movie in a way kind of speaks to that age group. Probably also because that age group will watch this movie and says, hey, life is tough and it could be depressing, but don't narrow your focus on who you think you have to be or who you are. Broaden yourself on like what life is and what appreciating life is and what living is. Yeah. And then maybe you won't want to kill yourself.
Yeah. Which also goes back to the simplicity of it, that he's not some big, I'm running for president or I'm running for, whatever. I'm going to be quarterback. Right. It's just, he's just living his like quiet, simple life. And then he refines meaning in relationships. He refines meaning in the parts of life that are beyond the career, that are outside the career, that he enjoys that moment. The moment of biting to the hot pizza or sitting in the sunshine. So they definitely, as far as that go, they definitely got that kind of stuff right.
Yeah. They also, in typical Disney, or in typical Pixar fashion, really. So 22, again, is the 22nd soul, and she's been through a bunch of mentors. So how the pre-world is set up is that some dead souls get to go mentor the preborn souls to help them
inspire them,
inspire them and prepare to be on Earth. And 22 has supposedly been through a ton of mentors, and there's she takes people through. She has this wall with all of her mentors' name tags, and if you pause it and look at it, she mentions some of them, but there's I wish I could remember. The only one that's coming to mind right now is Shakespeare, but they have a bunch of MLK.
Yeah,
I think a whole bunch.
I think also it's a detail which Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, definitely Abraham
a bunch
Lincoln.
Of random. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun. I like when Pixar definitely pays attention to their details.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
My biggest complaint with it is that, and this is going to be should I spoil it? I feel,
I
don't mind spoiling Anne of Green Gables. Okay. It's out. 22 does get to Earth at the end. but we don't see where she ends up. Like,
Yeah,
I wanted
that's
to
true.
see them flash to a baby being born and, like, being held in its mother's arms. And we don't see that.
Or will they
And
ever
that
meet
was
each other
very-
again and be like, you seem familiar to me?
It was just, that part was a little bit disappointing.
Yeah.
For me.
Even though I guess that it's funny because the story is really about Joe, but this is a cartoon for kids, and your main character is like a middle-aged guy.
It is interesting.
And it's only 20, just by throwing in 22, who's also voiced by an adult. They're both voiced by adults, but like
Right.
22 is supposed to make it like more kid-like. But the story is not about kids. It's just because 22
No.
is an unborn soul, so it's like, oh, so that's why this person is young, or like she has childlike delight in things. But there's not actually a kid. Sure, you have the kid who
No.
loves the music, but the story's not around the kid who loves music from the band. Like,
No, when Joe, who's voiced by Jamie Foxx, I don't know if we mentioned that, when he is in the cat body, that is definitely for the kids.
right, so I guess that also, but it's still, there's not, and the cat doesn't act, it's funny. It's just not
Yeah.
there's not
Maybe
actually
it's-
kids in the kids movie.
Maybe it's, Disney has always made family movies, and then for a while people started to think of them as kids movies, which Walt Disney himself was not happy about because he never intended to make
Right.
kid stuff. He wanted to make stuff for the whole family. I wonder if Disney and Pixar is sort of figuring out that they do talk to families, and also probably that they talk to young adults, people our age, so that they can make stuff that could be accessible to children, but doesn't have to be focused on kids
Maybe,
and still
yeah.
be really popular, which
It's definitely a
I would
family
be all
film.
for. Yeah. But I think it definitely speaks to grown-ups. You're young when you still use the term grown-ups, because I think adults actually say adults.
Yeah. Those are those people. Speaks about those people. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it really speaks to them. And I just want to say that if Disney Pixar continues going the adult cartoon route, I would be very happy, because most adult cartoons I find very uncomfortable.
Oh, they're usually
Very-
raunchy and stuff like that. Yeah.
They're just like, because they can literally make their characters do anything, they're so raunchy
Yeah.
and it's awful. But if Disney does it like this, Soul was it was a good message.
Yeah.
I thought it talked about it pretty well. And it's also, if you look at Toy Story, and then you look at like the original Toy Story,
Right.
and then the animation for Soul, some of it was so realistic.
Yeah.
It's really impressive what they can do.
Yeah. Absolutely. The only thing I rolled my eyes that they can't mention God here, but the rest of it, just having the very positive, life-affirming message was very, very good.
Yeah.
I think it's good for
And-
kids to hear that like, and to see that life doesn't have to be, you don't have to live a grand life to live a good life. Yeah.
Yes. That's probably the best message to take from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we definitely recommend it. Sorry if we just kind of spoiled it, but it's totally still worth watching, because you don't want, it's a Disney movie. You can figure out pretty much what's going to happen
Yeah.
anyway. So you don't watch it for the plot per se. You watch it for the story overall and the animation and the message. So, definitely recommend it. And I'm getting a little inspired. Okay, bagpipes were not my thing.
Oh,
That's
she finally
fine.
admits it.
But I do think making pizza could be my thing. And if it can't be my thing forever, I think it might be my thing right now.
Well,
Because as soon as you mention pizza, like since the beginning of the episode, all I wanted to do is eat pizza.
you know what? As long as it's a good pizza, I don't care if it's, your thing or not, as long as it's good pizza. So,
Well, you're assuming I'm going to share with you.
oh, okay, we'll see. We'll see how things turn out. We'll see.
I could definitely eat a whole pizza. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. We'll see how,
We'll
we'll see how things turn out.
We'll see.
Off an adventure.
So thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Oh My Word. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to subscribe and write a review. And please share the show with your friends. If you didn't like it, you can share the show with your enemies. Please also follow us on Instagram at Oh My Word Podcast. There we post episode updates, our ratings for each book, and also our personal reading recommendations. Music for the show is by Tim Burke. Editor is Gabriel Yaffe.
We'll see you next week.